Have you ever noticed how some people simply cannot fall asleep unless they are completely wrapped in a blanket, even on warm nights, even when the room is already comfortable, even when logic says they don't really need it, and yet, the moment they pull that blanket over their body, something shifts inside them, their breathing slows down, their thoughts soften, and sleep arrives almost effortlessly. What looks like a simple habit is often rooted in deep psychological and biological mechanisms that go far beyond comfort, and understanding this behavior can reveal surprising insights about safety, anxiety regulation, attachment patterns, and the human need for emotional containment. For many individuals, sleeping without a blanket feels strangely exposed, almost vulnerable, as if something essential is missing, and this reaction is not childish or irrational. It is closely connected to how our nervous system is wired to respond to cues of safety. The human brain is constantly scanning the environment for signs of threat or protection, even during rest, and when we lie down to sleep, we are entering one of the most vulnerable states of our day. From an evolutionary perspective, sleep meant reduced awareness, lowered defenses, and increased risk. So anything that symbolically or physically signals protection can help the brain switch from alert mode to restorative mode. A blanket provides exactly that signal. One of the key psychological concepts involved here is the idea of containment. When the body is gently enclosed by fabric, there is a subtle sense of boundary and holding, almost like being cradled. This sensation can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for relaxation, digestion, and recovery. The mild pressure of a blanket, especially heavier ones, stimulates what researchers call deep pressure touch stimulation, which has been shown to reduce cortisol levels, lower heart rate, and increase serotonin and melatonin production. In simple terms, the body interprets that pressure as safety, and safety is the foundation of sleep. Beyond physiology, there is also a strong emotional dimension. Many people associate blankets with childhood memories, bedtime routines, and moments of care. As infants and children, we were often wrapped in soft materials while being soothed, fed, or comforted, and those early sensory experiences leave lasting imprints in the brain. The texture, warmth, and weight of a blanket can unconsciously reactivate those memories of being protected and nurtured, even if we are not consciously thinking about them. For some, the blanket becomes a transitional object, a concept introduced in psychology to describe items that provide emotional reassurance in the absence of a caregiver. While adults may not carry stuffed animals to bed, a blanket can serve a similar symbolic function. Anxiety also plays a central role in this behavior. People who struggle with racing thoughts, hypervigilance, or general anxiety often find it harder to fall asleep because their nervous system remains in a semi-alert state. The simple act of pulling a blanket tightly around the body can create a microenvironment of predictability and control. It reduces sensory input, creates a defined physical boundary, and limits exposure to the surrounding space. This boundary can psychologically reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed, making it easier for the mind to disengage from external worries. In this way, the blanket acts almost like a physical anchor, grounding the person in their body. Interestingly, some individuals report that even if they feel physically hot, they still cannot sleep without being covered. This highlights that the need is not purely about temperature regulation but about psychological regulation. Warmth does contribute to comfort, of course, because a slight drop in core body temperature is part of the natural sleep process, and blankets help maintain thermal balance. However, when someone insists on having at least a thin sheet over them regardless of climate, it suggests that the symbolic function of coverage is more important than the practical one. Attachment styles can also influence this pattern. People with anxious attachment tendencies may have a stronger need for physical cues of closeness and reassurance, even in solitude. The blanket can subconsciously substitute for physical presence, offering a sense of being held or accompanied. On the other hand, individuals with a strong need for control may use the blanket as a way to create a controlled sleeping environment, wrapping themselves in a specific way that feels just right. The ritual itself becomes calming because it signals predictability. There is also a cognitive aspect related to habit formation. The brain loves associations, and if someone has consistently fallen asleep under a blanket for years, the blanket becomes part of a conditioned sleep cue. Just like dim lights, a specific pillow, or a certain bedtime routine, the blanket tells the brain, now it is time to power down. Removing that cue can disrupt the routine and make falling asleep feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable. In behavioral psychology, this is called stimulus control. Certain environmental signals become tightly linked to specific mental states. For some people, especially those who experienced periods of insecurity or instability earlier in life, the need for physical covering at night can be stronger. The act of covering oneself may symbolically recreate a sense of shelter, like building a small, personal refuge from the outside world. It is not about fear of something specific hiding in the dark. It is about creating a psychological boundary between me and everything else. Inside the blanket, the world feels paused, quieter, less intrusive. Weighted blankets have gained popularity in recent years precisely because they amplify this effect. Their added weight increases deep pressure stimulation, which has been shown to benefit individuals with anxiety disorders, insomnia, and even certain neurodevelopmental conditions. The consistent pressure can reduce physiological arousal and promote a faster transition into sleep. However, even a regular blanket can provide a milder version of the same soothing input. It is important to emphasize that needing a blanket to sleep is not a weakness, nor is it a sign of immaturity. On the contrary, it reflects the body's intuitive search for safety and regulation. Humans are sensory beings, and our nervous system responds profoundly to touch, pressure, and temperature. Sleep does not happen simply because we are tired. It happens when we feel safe enough to let go. For some, darkness and silence are sufficient. For others, a soft layer of fabric between their skin and the world makes all the difference. If you are someone who cannot sleep without being covered, you might try to notice what exactly changes the moment you pull the blanket over yourself. Does your breathing slow down? Do your shoulders relax? Do your thoughts become less sharp? Becoming aware of these subtle shifts can help you understand your own regulation patterns. And if you ever find yourself struggling with sleep rather than fighting this habit, you can intentionally use it as a tool by creating a bedtime ritual that reinforces that sense of containment and calm. In the end, the simple image of a person wrapped in a blanket is more than a cozy scene. It is a reflection of one of our deepest psychological needs, the need to feel protected while we surrender to rest. Behind that nightly routine lies a complex interplay of biology, memory, attachment, conditioning, and emotion. So, the next time you pull your blanket up to your chin and feel that wave of calm wash over you, remember that your brain is not being dramatic or dependent. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, searching for safety, finding it in the softest way possible, and finally allowing you to drift into sleep.